I wish the big bad builder's time was running out, but apparently it still rolls on. As ever, welcome to Cladding Matters with Hamish McClare of Sergeant Gray and, of course, Steve Day of the Building Safety Scheme.org. Now, today, as ever, we're talking about stuff which will hopefully rile you up and get you interested and questioning. Remember, critical thinking is what we're trying to inspire here. So today, beyond cladding, what about inside the buildings? Hamish, would you start us off?
Well, it's one of those interesting things. One of the great things about cladding, of course, you can't see beneath it until you lift it off. And then, of course, you can find out all sorts of other things which aren't correct at all. However, when you walk through the door of a building, it's a different story. And when you walk into certain places, I mean, Royal Archives being one of them, you can see straight away, bloody heck, where's the fire doors? But apparently it's perfectly all right according to the council. There's nothing wrong with the place.
Well, the modern fire is intelligent enough, knows to where to stop, you see. That's how it works, you see.
Greenwich Council trained the fire itself. Wow. That is an achievement.
Prometheus is finally under control. Go.
Oh, well, I mean, that's an obvious one. However, what we do have internally, because the big challenge was relative to that particular cladding which Norwich came out. But of course, what we do have, we have floors separated from floors. We have one flat separated from another flat, rooms separated from other rooms. If there's a challenge with the cladding, because somebody's been cutting corners, it strikes me there could also be ways of cutting corners internally, which, if not looked at, could prove to be as equally dangerous as the cladding on the exterior, if that's not fitted correctly. And so that's what we're speaking about, because it's all very well to say, let us go forward with rightly or wrongly. I mean, the idiotic thing, of course, we're going forward with a standard which is totally unacceptable to either people offering mortgages or the insurance people. As far as the council are concerned, that's perfectly all right. It doesn't really matter. It's just the residents who have to suffer either the cost or obviously the danger within. But it's the internal aspect which is being ignored in many, many cases. And certainly we know it's happening in Royal Artillery Quays. There's a good chance of it's happening in various other places too, because they're not taking it that far. Because we've heard in the news that cladding is the thing. So cladding they will work on.
So, Steve, thank you for that, Hamish. So, Steve, is it the fact that when you take the cladding off and you look underneath, that's where you see all the dirty underskirts?
Well, that's right. And just to give you a flavour, there's a building called Richmond House, and Richmond House didn't have cladding issues. It was to do with internal compartmentation, and also it was under 11 meters. And the government's been saying, "Oh yeah, we've got a building safety program for these high-risk buildings, all above 11 meters."
Of course.
But they don't want to look at the millions of buildings below 11 meters. Anyway, so this is what happened at Richmond House. So it's a place in southwest London called Worcester Park, and
I know it well.
Completely destroyed. 125 firefighters came to tackle the blaze back in the 9th of September 2019. 60 residents lost their homes, and an independent investigation after that concluded that there were basic construction errors. And this is what they wrote. Property Inspector Gerard McLean says, in Richmond House, cavity barriers, that's these internal defects, were defective. They were too small to close the cavity, and they would have contributed nothing to the control of the fire. Based on the number of drawings that I have seen, the defects in the cavity barrier installations appear to be the result of errors. So you've got a building without all the cladding that's burned down to, I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and it's just burnt down, and 6 people lost their homes. And then another one to contrast it is our favourite master builder, Old Barrett. So there's There's a building over in Croydon called Cityscape, and the developer, because of internal errors, had to then put down another £30 million due to failures with the reinforced concrete frame. So again, this isn't a cladding issue. This is
an internal structural issue, which is.
So you've got two contrasting disasters there, and our council knows in our situation at Royal Artillery Quays that our internal defects haven't been signed off. Yet in their publicity, they give the impression that it has all been signed off and work is starting. And what's more, and this is hot off the press this week, the head of legal has written to one of the residents and have basically said there was no errors in the council's original position of no evidence of defects at the time of construction.
I thought we produced
accuracies.
Steve, do we not have a plethora of evidence to show that's not the case?
Yeah, from the council itself. I mean, if your own self says these are illegal buildings, then you've got to have a word with yourself, haven't you? Really, as an organisation.
It does seem to be bizarre. Hamish, how long can such a position continue? Where, well, I don't know. We're in a post-truth world, aren't we? So the truth and evidence and experts no longer matter.
But it almost seems sort of indefinite. I was thinking about this earlier in the week. There's daft things we think about, and it actually came to me: is it actually total stupidity, or is it just blatant lies? And it must be one or the other. I mean, is that being unfair? I'm not so sure, because we've all seen the evidence, and we were actually wanting to speak about standards and getting appropriate standards.
Could it be just a grand mistake? It was just a mistake. They mistakenly didn't put plastic fixing in. They mistakenly put dot and dab and didn't put it in the right place. They mistakenly left on the panels. Could it be that?
No, that's got nothing to do with it. I mean, whatever the heck anybody did, that's really got nothing to do with it. It's a statement of fact that if somebody sort of says, look, you've got a nail in your head, I can see the nail in your head.
Right.
And you say, well, there's no nail in my head. Don't be so stupid.
It's the emperor that has no clothes all over again.
Yeah, it's that particular sort of type of thing. But we do know that we do go through these exercises, and people actually blame it on Trump. It happened before Trump sort of arrived on the scene. But it was sort of notably him that came up with these sort of, I can't remember what the title was given about the whole sort of thing, that we can actually bring out news which is
fake news.
It's perfectly safe, well, apart from the defects, but they don't mention the second part of it. That's the big challenge. They mention just the first part only. However, nobody seems to want to change it. The government are accepting a standard. The councils are accepting a standard, which is actually leaving residents still in dangerous situation. They're carrying out remediation in places, and they're still having to put in these the watch facility to have these properties visually, if you like, somebody walking around physically.
It's mindless, though. A waking watch is like the last bastion of giving up. It's like, we can't do anything about it. We'll just have someone walking around a bit.
Yeah, but they've remediated it. The properties have been remediated, and they're still putting them back in again. And expecting the leaseholders to pay for them.
And you have to remember that if Barratt had found defects in Cityscape for £30 million of extra work, then what will happen when the cladding is removed? So even the defects that are known about, there may be a plethora that aren't known about. And this is where it comes back to the same issue. How do we fund this? And who is accountable? And unfortunately, the current situation is the leaseholder is. They don't want to say that. They don't want to say that. They've got all of these building safety pieces of legislation, but ultimately they've watered down the standard. They've got the councils to deny all the defects. They've got the builders to say, well, we trust what the fire engineer says, and we're going to leave all the flammable panels on. We're going to ignore the internal defects and only do above the front doors in our case. And you're going to be left with the danger and the cost. And that's what is going on. That's what we will be challenging. And we're looking at doing a potential judicial review now of the council's false position, because this is about our society. It's moved beyond building safety. And I think if a council can make an official finding based on no provable evidence, and then double down on it, and then put letters through the doors of everyone in a 1,000 people block, and then double down on it with a big news item on the website sharing their mistruths, and they can't be challenged. And we've now had 2 formal complaints raised. They've both been rejected at the first stage, saying they've dealt with the matter. Every single time they haven't dealt with the matter, and have pushed more untruths, as you guys know, as you've walked through this and I'm very grateful for it. But this is now about local authorities, councils lying, and I will use that word because they're now basically saying they've dealt with the matter, and that's just not true. And
hang on, to deal with the matter, it means you need to take the questions as applied to you and respond to those questions. And the responses, instead of responding to the questions, is we dealt with the matter. That's not the case.
But they never say how they have. And
Right.
I thought the complaints process of a council would at least acknowledge that we're saying we aren't worried about how you've handled the situation. We just simply want this false position either justified or retracted. Please give us a justification if you're not prepared to retract it. What they've done every single time is not mention the core issue and then push something else out which doesn't address it, and then say they've dealt with it with that statement, and then refer to that statement every time. And of course, you know, I've been threatened with harassment allegations, which I am, because, you know, why should I be threatened with harassment allegations just for simply asking the council? And I didn't just deal with one councillor, I dealt with the leader of the opposition, leader of the council, sorry, Councillor Okereke. I dealt with the council. I think we did 3 videos that mentioned the council and not any individual. So I don't think it's right when you're fighting for justice, for building safety post Grenfell, to be threatened with criminal charges, frankly. And I applaud, I'm appalled by the council and implore the council to stop threatening individuals in the building safety crisis, and to jolly well retract the statement. And we will be judicially reviewing it if we can get that organised, and we'll be following that here on Cladding Matters, because I think local authorities should not be threatening members of the public with criminal sanctions for asking for untrue statements to be retracted on matters of serious building defects.
Well, it's almost like the actions of a police state. Although we're not in one, those are the actions of one. You know, making sure that those who have information are quietened down. Hey, Michelle, are we living through a new order where we have to keep our thoughts to ourselves and never ever question the hoi polloi?
I rather think so, because we have had this conversation in the past that who should councillors be representing? Should they be representing their residents and looking after the welfare of their residents? And we've seen it. It's not just Greenwich Council, there are other councils as well where we've had, but it does seem much more blatant with Greenwich Council, and we have
they love doubling down.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think the sad thing is we've sort of seen this, how there have been accusations that really, as far as the residents are concerned, they don't want councillors to represent the residents, because if you asked any of the residents of Royal Artillery Quays who their local councillor was, and had their councillor been in touch with them at all, since they've been instated best part of a year ago now, they won't have heard from their own councillor.
No,
they're just not interested. I don't think they even live within the district, do they, Steve?
No, we're not in this particular ward, no, and it's very suspect.
It just seems to me, how can you represent a ward that you don't seem to have any real interest in? Just to make this absolutely clear, because Steve's already said this, no single person is isolated out here and saying you're at fault or it's your fault or we're angry with you. We want the council to acknowledge something. Am I right?
Yeah, we're all we're doing is they put out a statement that, based on all the available information, which was the majority of it, including from the council itself, that there is no evidence of any unlawful construction, basically letting the builder off the hook. And all we've asked over, I would say it's 4 months maybe now, he's asked them to justify that. We provided a reminder after a reminder. Multiple residents have written in of all the evidence, and they've never dealt with the matter, yet they've refused to retract it and then claim they've dealt with it after releasing false publicity that very scarily implies that Barratt's done nothing wrong and it's all to do with regulations changing. And of course, they put in a big statement saying we've misinterpreted them. Well, how can you misinterpret a position that says there's no evidence of anything wrong with your building? That's either very, very interpretable and correctly, I would add, or not. You know, people can understand that. And, you know, and just for this last week, one of the residents has just questioned again and again the head of the legal department there, director of legal, and she doubled down yesterday and said that there's no factual inaccuracies with the council's position. So not only have they dealt with the matter, she's now saying that there's no factual inaccuracies with the no evidence of unlawful construction, even though the council says there's loads of evidence of unlawful construction in 2019. So apparently that's not wrong at all. This is the head of legal doubling down.
I don't understand it. I mean, when it's written in black and white, it's uncontrovertible evidence. You can't argue with it. It's there. Unless they're saying it's been made up. Someone's mocked it up and it's never really happened at all. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, but the problem is you just have to look. It's very simple stuff. There's a fire door that's meant to be between the lift and the stairs. Go and see that. Is there a fire door? Do you think there ever could have been one? Why was it removed? And the building owners have also written to me and said it was never there. So, you know, it's just simple stuff. That's the problem for the council. You come and see if there's a fire door there, Mr. Councillor, and that's it. Yeah, it's a big problem. And we're talking about internal defects. Let's bring it back to that. So an internal defect is a hole in a wall, right?
Right.
A crack, a structural issue. These are very easily found, and you can get an endoscopic camera with a fire engineer, and he'll put it through a wall, you know, make a small hole and through a wall, and he'll tell you how many of that there is. And the problem is very simple. If there's holes between we call them compartments, but they're like a shoebox, and a shoebox around your flat, right? And I think Matt Hodges Long used that term, didn't he?
Yeah.
Very helpful. And if you've got a hole in your shoebox, smoke and fire will get in from the other flat. And because a flat's got a load of appliances that can cause huge amounts of fire, you don't want the fire from one flat going into another. And that affected Grenfell. It clearly affected Richmond House. And that is what we're dealing with. And you can see from the government's response to the building safety crisis, they're really prioritising only cladding. And they don't really want to discuss building defects that are internal, because they know that's potentially a much bigger bill. And oh, crumbs, we didn't mention the Olympic Village, and we're talking about internals. Don't forget, the Olympic Village has also got internal defects up to the tune of £432 million. You know, so that's maybe Barratt's not so bad with their 30 million, but maybe it's a bigger development. Who knows? But what I'm saying is there's a huge bill, and it's not something the government particularly wants to put their hand in their pockets for. And you'll see no real sort of non-cladding remediation scheme anywhere. It's all sort of like pushed down, and under 11 meters, like Richmond House, well, you pay for it yourself if you want to fix it. You know, this is where we are.
It's a crazy scenario. Hamish, would you care to take us home, please, sir?
Well, two things. It's just a reminder, and with Steve's last words there, who is actually going to pay for it? Well, building safety scheme is all about looking into that.
Yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity to have that aired sufficiently in either of the sort of houses, whether they be the House of Lords or the House of Commons.
Yeah.
And it really does sort of make one wonder if we have insufficient funds to cope with what is construed to be the cladding issues at the moment. What is going to happen once we get underneath? What is going to happen once we drop below 18 meters? What is going to happen when we start looking at internal defects when we get away from the cladding? I can't remember. I mean, Steve has probably got the numbers, but I'm sure they inspected something like 4 flats and found something like 32 problems with those sort of 4 flats. Did they not, Steve? Was it? Was those?
I think it's in the hundreds.
Oh, right, it was in the hundreds.
Yeah.
They only looked at 4 of them. So what are you going to actually sort of find? But ignoring those, it is really quite a serious thing. And the concern is, and I personally really feel for councillors who probably have been hoodwinked in agreeing with something that they don't know what they're agreeing to. Because these defects, if we, as a consequence of the statement of any council, which then enables a fire to break out and people to die, building to be completely sort of wrecked, are that council responsible? Of course they are, because they haven't chosen not to respond to it or take notice of it. And it was big criticism of what was going on at Grenfell.
I would say that they would be joint and severally liable, Hamish. Surely.
I would think so too. But I mean, these are legal matters. But really, speaking about it from a human perspective, moral perspective, are we going to be integrous about this, or are we just going to pretend that it doesn't exist and hope that it goes away? It's not going to go away until you do something about it. And we really can't stop speaking about the exterior until that gets resolved. And if that ever happened, not 2050 seems not a good time to gauge it might be done by. We then go look at the internals. But then we have to look at it. How often does that cladding need to be replaced once it's been replaced? Once it's been remediated, whether it's unsafe or not, is it not going to need remediation yet again in another 10, 20 years' time?
Wow. So I guess my last supplication is to Greenwich Council, either the people at the top or the others who may have voted without having checked. Please bear in mind that by agreeing to effectively state no fault to be found, you are leaving these buildings open to a fire which could take the lives of innocent people, which will be on your conscience. And I would hope that you would see that is not a good place to be. I absolutely appeal to you to change your position on this and agree with your own findings previously that there is a case to answer, and then deal with it as you should do in the public domain. Thank you so much, Steve Day, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to help promote these ideas. And Hamish McClay, our Lord and Master, who helped put together this in the first place. Thank you for your honesty and your integrity. And I would say, I'm looking at you out there, Greenwich Council. I'm looking for you to show integrity at this time. Please, I'm asking nicely. I'm being kind. I'm being pleasant. I'm speaking with nice words here and a big smile. Come on now. Come forward. Show your integrity. Show your moxie. Come ahead. Make this right. Until next week, keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. And in the midst of all this nonsense, please do look after your mental health. Until the same time next week. Bye-bye.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll plunge through the moon, but their word always fails.